I can feel very high.
It's a new day on the Enterprise and we're hosting a guest. We've met a trader on our travels, but the basic minerals and ores we're looking for to make parts and repairs aren't his speciality. He does know of something that might do the same job and with less manufacturing. He provides us with the location of a derelict ship after a sufficient bribe, though warns us the reason he didn't strip it for parts himself is because it's haunted. Supernatural shenanigans are no barrier to Starfleet, so over we pop for a look. Travis isn't sold on the idea of poking through a wreck, possibly because it's a knockoff Star Destroyer and he doesn't want to get sued by Disney. He's overruled, and down we go. This is a potentially dangerous situation that we've been warned about by somebody with more data than us, so obviously we're going to split up. Archer and Travis manage to find some data storage devices and decide to nick them in the name of science. Tucker and T'Pol, on the other hand, have discovered they're not alone, despite a lack of life signs. They follow a moving shadow and find a dead end. Not quite as dead as it looks, though, as after pooping off a hatch, we discover a compartment with not insignificant vegetation in it. The whole thing's covered by anti-sensor gubbins, hence why we didn't detect it, which would also explain the woman we find. She does the smart thing and legs it, so they give chase. This, it would seem, was a bad idea, as they shortly find themselves outgunned. Looks like Archer was able to clear things up as we're having a nice calm chat a little later. The lore dump comes from various members of the group, but essentially boils down to supply ship got attacked and crashed here 3 years back. The anti-sensor setup was to stop whoever attacked them finding the place, which is also why they didn't call for help. Archer offers to take them all home, only to be declined when told it's over a year away. Quite how they could tell this without asking how fast we go is unknown, but let's ignore that for now. A lift might not be an option, but we can still have a go at getting the thing flying, and a guy who must be important because he's being played by René Auberjonois agrees. Tucker's fiddling with gubbins later when the woman he first saw reappears. Though shy to begin with, she eventually speaks up when he's about to electrocute himself because the ship's been jury-rigged to make things work. We also learn her name's Liana, but only because her mum turns up to call her away. Not everybody is quite so interested in the newcomers as Liana, it seems. Liana's back later with food, more specifically some fruit grown in the ship. The land outside is unsuitable for farming, so they rely on the room we found earlier. Edible vegetation may not be the only thing this planet lacks based on her attention to Tucker. A shortage of companions won't be a problem when they fix the ship and get back home, says Tucker, though Liana does not seem quite so enthusiastic. Another member of the group interrupts to grab Tucker as a different system needs our attention. The main computer's not in quite as good condition as the engines, and the guy's worried it could fail. It'll need gubbins from the Enterprise, so Tucker invites he and Liana to visit. The offer is declined, so Tucker and T'Pol walk away, leaving Liana to argue with guy being played by René Auberjonois. He's worried about a nebulous secret being discovered, but she promises to be discreet. To the Enterprise we go, where Reed's making some observations to Archer. The story we were given about the ship being attacked doesn't add up based on the lack of weapons damage and them still not sending out a distress call 3 years later. Also, the food they're growing isn't enough to feed all the people we've seen. In short, this shit stinks. We've got those storage devices we nicked though, so Archer has Hoshi give them a poke to try and learn more. Looks like Liana got the visit she wanted after all, as she's being shown around by Tucker. She has plenty of questions, but dodges answering ours when Tucker asks about her home planet. She's saved from the need for more distractions by Archer calling Tucker to his ready room. Once there, Archer asks if Tucker's noticed anything odd about Liana or the other survivors. We've accessed the data storage, you see, and it says there was no attack. According to the logs we found, something on the ship went very wrong indeed, and it crashed all on its own. Reed's also done some more scanning and determined the ship's been there for a wee bit longer than 3 years, nearly 2 decades longer in fact. Those logs we found mentioned escape pods launching when the ship went down as well. We found one in orbit, so we're going to crack it open like a Kinder Egg and see what the toy is. Finding a corpse inside isn't particularly surprising given the whole 20 years in orbit business. What is surprising is that the guy we find is one we met down on the surface, according to Tucker, and he was looking significantly less dead than this version. T'Pol's found something curious. At least that's what we're to assume from a shot of her translating some text and looking as curious as a Vulcan can do. It's presumably related to the things we've discovered, the things Tucker's asking Liana about up on the Enterprise. She tries to lie half-heartedly when asked how long she's been here, and simply gives up when told we grabbed an escape pod and found a crispy treat inside. She refuses to explain and asks to be returned home. All is not well at home, though, as T'Pol's accosted whilst exploring. Our surprisingly mobile dead guy is one of the people who takes issue with this, assuming it's because she's discovered their secret. Liana's back home, though Archer decided he and Reed should accompany Tucker in returning her. She says this is unnecessary as they're in no danger, which might be more convincing if they weren't greeted with guns. Liana wants everybody to just let us leave, but the group has other ideas, and Tucker is marched away to continue repairs. Liana pleads to Guy, being played by René Auberjonois, believing he has the power to change this, but he does nothing while Archer and Reed are ordered to leave. As Tucker's taken to work on the computer again and has his request for assistance from T'Pol denied, Liana's complaining to her mum. The complaints are apparently about her father and how she's tired of being told these choices are for her benefit, but her mum just wants things to go back to how they were. While Archer's organising a rescue team up on the Enterprise, Liana goes to see Tucker. She dismisses the very healthy dead guy, saying they listened to her orders, but apparently not enough to let him go. It would seem she's tired of the lie and has decided to share it with Tucker. She might want to get a move on. Archer's back with reinforcements, and the ensuing Barney is not going well for us, due in no small part to our red poop passing straight through the opponents. The ding-dong is heard by Tucker and Liana. Tucker, who now knows the secret, pleads with Liana to stop them. She may be the only one who can, as we certainly can't. The very healthy dead guy walks through a wall to continue his attack, though is solid enough for Archer to have a bit of a wrestle. This continues until Liana fiddles with a gizmo in the computer room, and the group starts to disappear. Most of them anyway, as Guy, being played by René Auberjonois, remains. The rest were holograms, obviously. Guy, being played by René Auberjonois, made them to keep he and his daughter Liana company. It seemed only fair when he was responsible for their deaths, not just because he underestimated the damage caused by an accident, but also from choosing to run and save his daughter instead of trying to fix it when he found out. The resulting kaboom killed half the crew, and others ended up in those escape pods. He and Liana presumably survived the crash landing alone. Either that or the ones he says he buried afterwards would have been very upset about it. He tried to fix up the ship for a couple of years, then decided giving his young daughter some company was more important and made holograms of everyone who snuffed it. This, says Tucker, is not enough. The current technical problems we're fixing show how tenuous the whole setup is, and that's without anything unexpected. Even if it all keeps running, the best Liana can hope for here is to die in stagnation, surrounded by lies. T'Pol turns up as Archer takes over from Tucker. He offers to repair the systems and leave if that's really what Guy, being played by René Auberjonois, wants, but it may be another 20 years before he gets a second chance to change his mind. Guy, being played by René Auberjonois, is visiting the Enterprise, though hopefully not being given a tour of engineering given his body count. He's been thinking over what Tucker said and how it affects Liana, and has decided to get his ship flying again. He just needs parts from us as he's using the holographic crew to effect repairs. Tucker visits to hand Liana a food processor so she can make ice cream from shit or whatever. All that's left is the obligatory goodbye, so we'll leave them to mash faces and not give too much thought to them being surrounded by the dead people that Haddad made, as we get ready to take another step on the long road. If you were here for the review of the last episode, Acquisition, you'll recall that the overall feel was one of Enterprise struggling to find a voice of its own and resorting to what's worked before to compensate. It brought nothing new to the show, which is a big problem when Enterprise was supposedly a show about everything being new. Today's episode, OASIS, does not help to improve the mood. This is a story that could have been present in any show since TNG. In fact, I'd go so far as to say it literally was present. If things felt familiar, that's because it's functionally the same story as a Season 2 episode of Deep Space Nine. Shadowplay was about a man living in a holographic village, a fact revealed near the end. We may have been given a different setup and ending for this episode, but it's still a cover version of someone else's song at best. René Auberjonois having been present in both certainly doesn't help distract from the similarities, and I say that as a viewer who likes his performances. An overall absence of fresh ideas isn't the only issue here though, or even the main one. I'm not against the premise of other species being 200 years ahead of us with certain tech, and the prospect of holography existing isn't a problem in and of itself. But the way those points have been implemented creates what I would argue are much deeper flaws than a simple lack of imagination. The story we're given today creates two significant problems unrelated to the plot. It both ignores the idea that all of this stuff should be fresh and new to us, and contradicts much of the holography episodes from shows set later chronologically. Prior to this episode, the Enterprise has experienced precisely one example of holography, and even then just for entertainment environments. Despite the tech being largely unknown to the crew, Archer and company don't even fucking blink when they encounter it creating dozens of fully simulated people. There's not a single "what the hell was that?" no attempt to explain beyond, "oh, they were holograms," and I think that's indicative of an underlying issue. The people behind the scenes are familiar with holotech in a way that the characters they're writing aren't, and that disconnect completely undermines the sense of discovery and wonder they should be displaying. This is old hat to Archer because it's old hat to the people who wrote Archer. And this behavior has wider-reaching implications beyond merely damaging the believability of today's story. The pilot episode of The Next Generation shows the Enterprise D's very own testosterone torpedo, William T. Riker, left agog at these new-fangled holodecks and how real the environments they can make feel. That made sense at the time because they were new, things that humanity was just beginning to explore. Except now, that's not true. Now this is tech we'd experienced 200 years previously, and outside the technological confines of a designated holodeck to boot. There's no reason for him to be as fascinated by this unknown tech as he was, because today's story shows its use has been recorded for centuries. In short, Riker being amazed at a game of Pong makes no sense when Archer wrote reports about Minecraft before his grandfather was even born. This portrayal of holotech in a prequel, and our relative lack of surprise to it, has completely pissed on established facts in a way that one random encounter with the Ferengi did not. I dislike being entirely negative in a review, especially when a story would have been acceptable, if thoroughly uninspired, under other circumstances, but it's impossible to separate what we got from the context in which it was given. The stated purpose of Enterprise was to offer a lower-tech, more industrial viewpoint, the framework upon which the enlightened Federation would be built. This is the second time in 2 episodes that it's instead managed to show how the rest of the galaxy is pretty much the same, regardless of when we find it. The result is not only a disappointing lack of originality and a demonstration that the veneer of difference is paper-thin at best, but also the vague feeling that everything else in the Trek universe stands still when we're not looking at it. For a show that's supposed to highlight just how far we've come, it has once again done an alarmingly effective job of suggesting the road wasn't quite that long after all. End of episode.
I feel like we're missing something.
A compelling story?
No, I mean missing something to make the mutiny work.
Oh, in that case I don't think so. We've recruited or sidelined the officers, and any crew who aren't under the command of people loyal to us will get knocked out by Phlox and his gas.
Ferengi gas?
Whatever.
I dunno, I've still got this tickling back in my brain that it's all too easy.
Well, obviously. Every shenanigan we've been involved in over the last few years has turned to shit, and I've no doubt this will too in ways we could not possibly have foreseen.
If they're all destined for misery, then why are we still doing them?
Because the guy who makes these needs a background for the credits. Woof.